Welcome back to another episode of the XRP podcast. Today, we're going to be breaking down the news coming in from Flare Networks. We're going to break down Firelight, the launch, the future of XRP DeFi. And joining me today, of course, is Mr. Hugo Phillion coming in from Flare Networks. Great to have you back on the show. And of course, obviously, timing is everything. You guys have some major news announcements to put out there. Of course, you announced it over on X yesterday, but it was a good statement out there in terms of Firelight launching their vault. First of all, give us kind of a framework of the success that you were able to achieve in a short time.
Yeah, so Firelight launched on Wednesday, and immediately, well, more or less immediately, filled their first cap, which was 25 million XRP,
Yeah.
about $55 million, close to, and that happened in less than 12 hours.
Yeah.
So, obviously, when you launch a protocol and a product. And as I'm sure you know, Flare's been working very, very hard for a very long time to turn XRP into an asset that can do more than what it currently can. And, we've built an entire ecosystem around allowing XRP to be used in various different ways across DeFi, Firelight being really one of the core planks to that. And so, from our perspective, for that cap to fill within 12 hours is, in a purely organic way. There were no TVL deals. There were no, we didn't bring in any institutions into this particular cap. They will come into the next one.
Right.
And, so for the whole thing to fill up in an organic way is in so
Huge
fast
statement.
a time.
Yeah.
Just demonstrates the utility of what Flare is offering. So, and Firelight. So very happy with that.
I think when you look at the ecosystem of XRP and just in general the retail traders that have been in it for quite some time, they're starting to appreciate projects and companies that, one, understand how the ecosystem can be leveraged, and two, actually come out with utility products. And I think that's something that you guys have been able to do fairly effectively. For many users, because we have a lot of new people coming into crypto that watch this show, listen to this podcast, explain a little bit about first of all, the relationship between Flare, Firelight, and the connection. What are the key things you're trying to do?
Absolutely. So Flare, as for your new listeners, people that haven't heard about me before and Flare before, Flare is a layer one EVM platform designed around data. We use that data in multiple ways. It's used in a DeFi ecosystem, but we also use that data to enable highly secure bridging. And this allows us to transform assets that don't have smart contracts, like XRP, which is our primary focus right now, but later probably also Bitcoin and others. And that allows us to transform those assets into an asset on Flare through that bridge, from which you can then effectively use that asset across various DeFi opportunities, whether that is Firelight staking, lending and borrowing through platforms like Kinetic, depositing in a DEX to provide liquidity through Spectre and Gnosis. And Gnosis is also building a CDP protocol, which allows you to effectively mint a stablecoin against your XRP. And SparkDex will allow you to use your XRP to take perps positions. So, this is a whole wide-ranging gamut of DeFi positions. So we are effectively transforming an asset that currently is used principally for payments into a collateral asset, and that's a totally different function, and it's a very good use case for XRP. So that's that. To explain Firelight a little more, it is a staking protocol that is looking to build DeFi cover. DeFi cover is effectively underwriting risk across DeFi applications. In this case, absolutely blue chip applications that already have hundreds of billions used in those applications constantly. So applications like Aave, the very large ones.
Well, and I think you have kind of hit it on the head in the sense of bringing XRP to DeFi, which has been one of the missing utility components. I think that people would look at XRP and say this, can never be used other than a speculative asset, holding it for possibly cross-border payments, all those kind of things. This completely changes that narrative. Walk us through the decision to increase the minting cap, because you guys went from 5 million to 100 million FXRP literally after one day. So what were you seeing internally that makes you go, wow, let's go do it?
Yeah, so we launched the minting, well, I guess the minting of FXRP in September,
Hmm.
and we've been escalating those caps over a period of time. The goal with that is that it's a new protocol. We want to make sure that it's all running smoothly, and we want to make sure that we limit the risk were there any issues. As we've rolled that out, we've become increasingly more comfortable with how the system is operating. We haven't found any issues in practice. Obviously, when you build a protocol, you need it to run in live operation in order to fully make sure that it's working. And so we limited the amount of FXRP. The decision to increase the cap was very simple. We're very comfortable with the protocol. And we're building out the DeFi ecosystem, both with Firelight, but also new lending protocols that are coming, and new vaults that are coming. I
Yep.
think the really important thing to understand here is, you were talking about people criticizing XRP as a speculative only asset. Well,
Hmm.
now with Flare, you can get decentralized yield on XRP, and
Huge.
that's critical. That's what
Yep.
we've been working for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think you have to consider this will open up a lot of veins, in terms of the composition of how people are going to play this. When you look at the breakout of what's happening there within FXRP, especially within all this new minting and the activity early on, in terms of these depositors, are you seeing retail holders, whales, maybe
So
institutional? What are you seeing?
right now, it's principally retail.
Retail.
We have been working with a number of institutions, which has been going spectacularly. Um, but they are slower than
Sure.
individual people. You've got to get through multiple layers of, I guess, bureaucracy and risk analysis, which is done. And we know that those institutions will be allocating to
Hmm.
this because for them it's just a fantastic opportunity to do something with an asset that is on their balance sheet. Um, but at the moment it's retail, and it will open up to institutions as we go forward. But retail so far have if you just look at one of the applications, there is almost 62 million FXRP in our lending protocol
Hmm.
Kinetic, and almost 20 million after having launched only on Wednesday of staked XRP in
Yep.
Kinetic.
Yep. Well, and I think to the point you're getting at is when you look at holders who have been holding XRP for years, now you've got a new value proposition that's being presented to them. This changes, I think, maybe strategies all over the globe of how they're going to start to utilize XRP. Let's talk a little bit about yield. What kind of returns? What are we thinking about here right now, at least in
So
the near term?
it depends which product, but Firelight I know is aiming for between 4 and 6%.
Yeah,
So that's 4 and 6% on an asset that has zero yield currently.
fantastic.
Um, and when you do stake into Firelight, you get what's known as a staked version of the token. So you
Hmm.
you receive staked XRP.
Yep.
You can then take that asset, which is your receipt token,
Hmm.
and then put that into DeFi and earn more. So whilst Firelight is targeting 4 to 6%, you may get another 4 to 10%.
Right. Yeah, unstaked.
Depending on what you want to do on the staked XRP. And this is excellent because it means we can probably look for a rough range of 8 to 12% on XRP itself, which is a huge yield.
Oh, it's massive. What do you think we're going to see an onslaught of companies and projects starting to roll out use cases for staked XRP in the near
Oh,
future?
absolutely. We already
Yep.
have. We announced today that Spectra, which is a yield market,
Hmm.
has built deployed on Flare. This allows you to effectively strip out the yield from your staked XRP and trade that yield. So
Oh,
you
wow.
have a
Okay.
principal token, and you trade. It's a bit like a bond.
Okay. Yep.
If you strip the coupons off of a bond, you have the principal amount, which is the base element of the bond, and you have the yield amount, which is the, I guess, the floating part, which you can trade. And it means that people can buy yield, but it also means that people can speculate on what's going to happen to yield.
Interesting. Okay, so if you were to compare this, what's happening right now within the Flare ecosystem, obviously with Firelight, you look at other DeFi launches, whether you go all the way back to Rocket Pool, Lido, etc.
Yeah.
How would you compare that to what's happening here?
I mean, I think I said it the other day on Twitter that, or X, I suppose now, um, but we're very used to seeing in DeFi ecosystems like the Ethereum world or
Right.
Solana. We're very used to seeing huge launches. We're
Hmm.
not used to seeing that in XRP. This was a huge launch. And in fact, the launch of FXRP has been huge overall, in terms of numbers of people, in terms of dollar amounts. This is really the first time this has ever happened within the XRP ecosystem. So,
Yeah.
I like to say that, if you want to build successfully for XRP, come to Flare.
Yeah, I'm just showing the Firelight website. You guys can go over there and learn a little bit more about the staking mechanism, how that essentially works. They've done a really good job of building this out. Beyond what we're going to see, at least in the near future, how long before you think you said they move slower, but institutional coming? Right now, it's a retail play. What would you say if you forecasted this, what this might look like in the next, say, 12 months?
Oh, I think we'll see in some of the faster moving institutions come on in the next, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Maybe January would
Wow.
be
Okay.
a good target. And then I think, knowing some of the players that are involved, obviously I can't divulge those details ahead of time. The scope for this is, really vast. These entities are sitting on 10, 20 billion dollars of XRP,
Yeah.
and they need to do something with it. And in fact, Firelight is built for scale.
Yeah.
Its goal with DeFi cover is to cover very large, pools of assets across the space, and that means that it needs many billions of dollars staked in order to do that adequately.
Yeah, well, let's address that because obviously we're talking like I think it's been a billion lost to DeFi hacks annually right now. Obviously, we haven't seen insurance at least to become a standard in DeFi really until now. And I think their phase two, Firelight's phase two, introducing the DeFi cover using staked XRP. Um, Explain this mechanism. How does this work? Because I think a lot of people are still skeptical of DeFi in general.
Sure. So, Firelight is structured just towards the best protocols, the ones that have been around the longest, the ones that have the most capital in them,
Right.
the ones that, where they know the teams, where they can assess the teams, where the risk of a hack is very low.
Yep.
Um, and this is absolutely critical because we're looking to have cover, but we are certainly never looking for that cover to be triggered. Um, but the key element to this is that the reason why we're doing this is that institutions have an issue with allocating
Yep.
into DeFi. And that issue is that unlike allocating into other areas, there isn't a way for them to protect themselves. And simply, many institutions will have a mandate that prevents them from allocating unless they can get protection.
Hmm.
And this means that this scenario is really holding back the DeFi space because you've got institutions sitting on trillions of dollars,
Yep.
but unable to allocate, but wishing to allocate because the yields are good, and it's an interesting product. So this is where Firelight goes,
Yeah.
and using XRP as the first asset for Firelight is you know it's a huge asset, it's hugely liquid, and it just makes perfect sense.
Well, I think when you look at what they're doing with this model, and the potential here. I mean, you know, just look at institutional. I mean, they have, to your point, they haven't been rushing into DeFi for obvious reasons. Let's talk about the regulation wild card, because first of all, how does Flare navigate kind of where the regulatory landscape is, especially with this kind of product? Because are you
Mhm.
in conversations with regulators right now about this?
So Firelight isn't our product. Firelight is a partnership between Flare and
Sure,
a
sure.
group called Sentora. And so we picked Sentora because they have an extremely professional team, and their background is in risk. They manage billions of dollars in
Okay.
DeFi on behalf of many people.
Yep.
And so they are based in the US, in Miami, in fact. And they have a regulatory team. They have a general counsel. They work. They don't do things in a slipshod manner.
Yep.
They have made absolutely certain that they've understood where their product fits in terms of the regulatory landscape. In fact, you will see that certain countries are excluded from using the Firelight front end.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean they can't use Firelight. It just
Yep.
means that they cannot use the centralized front end. But they
Right.
can access it through the blockchain itself because the blockchain is fully decentralized, and it effectively cannot be censored. And that's the goal, one of the goals of blockchain.
Yep. Yep.
But Firelight will not. Firelight's front end itself will not be able to serve customers from certain jurisdictions where the regulations are not in place for them to do so. So Europe is a good example there, and
Hmm.
as is the UK. So we at Flare and the Sentora team at Firelight, we are extremely careful with regulatory compliance. You'll see that even our tweets, have a regulatory statements in them,
Yep.
so that we don't fall foul of laws in the UK and things like that. Um, we like this is something we put a lot of effort into. Obviously, you can never be 100% guaranteed that there some regulator isn't going to come after you, but you can minimize that risk.
Well, and I think that's the key. If you're minimizing risk, this, of course, is going to start to engage everyone, especially in the institutional side. Especially if you compare this, you know, to traditional insurance. So I think this is something, because there's other crypto native options. I mean, Nexus has been out there, Nexus Mutual, I think they've done some stuff. Why can't someone else just kind of copy this model? What do you think would be the moat that would help
So
Flare? Yeah.
So I think, first of all, team at Centura, their background in risk and risk analysis,
Hmm.
they've just taken on a chief strategy officer for Firelight, who has a background in insurance underwriting, which is a great hire for them. And then the team has at Centura have probably the being a large allocator within the DeFi space, they probably have one of the best sets of relationships, um, with DeFi protocols,
Mm.
of any team in the space. And so, I'm very, very bullish on their ability to execute relative to any other team.
So basically, teams are going to be the key model here going forward, and this is something we've talked about a lot. Is that I think as we start to see teams migrating to very special products, you're going to see some breakouts and maybe some dominance start to occur in these markets. So I think you're dead on with that.
Ultimately, this is a business,
Yeah.
as in, we are in a space where people are doing business. Securing a protocol that wishes to, have cover from your protocol, that
Hmm.
is a business relationship. It's very straightforward. And you want to pick the team that has the best opportunity of sealing those deals. And Centura certainly is.
I'm looking at their website here. They seem to be very active so they're doing structured lending, treasury optimization, and then stablecoin adoption is
Absolutely. They work with Ripple on RLUSD.
okay. All right. Yeah. So that makes more sense in terms of the connection here. So this starts to really open up, I think, a lot of opportunity, at least in Wall Street, for this to kind of scale at the next level. How big of a process do you think? Oh, first of all, I guess, is everything in place right now to scale at maximum capacity, or will this be something that you feather in over time?
I think, I must not talk out of turn with, the Sentora team must put that out, but, it will feather in over time. It's going to take a while to accumulate sufficient capital and things like
Sure.
that. They've already said that, this is just phase one. Phase two is when the real yield will come in. Um, with only $50 million staked at the moment, that there's really nothing for them to secure. Once we get to 500 million,
Hmm.
once we get to a billion, once we get to 5 billion,
Yep.
then suddenly that pool of capital is an attractive, secure offering.
Now you mentioned there's some limitations in terms geographical. Right now, give me the regions where this is going to be mostly used, at least in the early going.
So obviously it's DeFi, so it's global. But in terms of restrictions, centralized entities, which
Yeah.
of which a website is operated by a
Hmm.
centralized entity, they cannot be cannot serve customers or users in a region where the laws are inadequately structured to allow them to do so. So Europe is really the principal one, together with the UK, and then a number of countries in the Middle East, which have things like sanctions and stuff like that. But to be clear, this is only for using the front end
Okay.
of Firelight. So the website that is specifically built by Firelight.
Yeah.
The aspect about DeFi and blockchains is that you can use the chain itself.
Right.
You don't have to use someone's structurally built
Exactly.
front end. Um, so Firelight could not stop people from jurisdictions where the front end cannot be used from staking to them, simply because the whole protocol is decentralized and uncensorable, and that's the entire point of blockchain.
Hugo, what do you think are the bigger challenges that would be facing this evolution that we're seeing take place in really decentralized finance right now? What are the things that you kind of see as roadblocks potentially that are out there?
Firelight is being built, and our goal with Firelight and why we backed them as a team is to encourage institutions to come into DeFi by offering them what they're familiar with, which is the ability to get cover.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest roadblock for us as an industry, actually. Um, I think for specific roadblocks for Firelight, it's just going to be a question of education. Um, for us, it's a matter of making it easier for people from the XRP ledger
Yeah.
to actually deploy XRP. And to that end, we've built smart accounts, which are not live yet, but will be sometime in December, which allows you to control effectively your wallet on Flare directly from the XRP ledger. And so this means that you can use things like Zaman
Hmm.
to interact with Flare. So it's a familiar experience. It
Yeah.
means that you don't have to come into the Flare ecosystem, even though your assets are there. You don't have to download a Flare wallet.
Right. Right.
The whole goal here is to just make it really, really easy for Zaman's users, of which I believe Zaman is sitting on really a very, very sizable amount of XRP,
XRP. Yes.
roughly in the region of about $4 billion worth, from what I understand. Um,
Have you guys
so
considered working with the Tangem team? Have you talked to them at all?
So I believe Tangent is integrated with Zaman, if I'm not mistaken.
I got to
I
check
could
on
be.
that.
I,
Let's
I
see.
believe I believe they are. So our goal is to make it as simple as possible for you to get your XRP on Flare and deploy it into the
Right.
applications on the network. So that's one of our bigger roadblocks. And then of course us getting in the institutions into Flare Flare and FXRP and Firelight, that's a critical path for us, of which we have already had sizable early success.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say right now for in terms of FXRP minting cap by the end of say Q1 26? What do you think that's going to look like?
I mean, eventually we're going to take the cap off completely, so
Oh, okay.
it'll be uncapped. I
Would
don't
it
know if
be as
that'll
early as
be.
Q1?
I don't know. I think it might be by the end of Q1.
Okay.
But we'll be raising the cap, rapidly over the coming weeks. We are looking to launch other markets for
Yep.
FXRP. We're looking to launch other protocols and other ways to use FXRP
Interesting.
in the next couple of months. So we will need a much higher cap.
So you're saying even more utility is coming.
Hmm.
Oh, this is news right there. I think this is well, okay. So there's got to be a potential roadmap here for 2026. Is there anything you can talk about around the 2026 roadmap for what you guys are doing at Flare?
I mean, I think the first thing we want to launch, and I won't make any bones about it, is we want to launch FXRP as a trading pair on the Hyperliquid
Right.
network, so that so that market makers and Hyperliquid participants can trade in size the XRP asset
Mm-hmm.
on that network. So that's absolutely something we are well in progress with. I think there's other ways I'm interested in seeing XRP being used. In terms of as a collateral asset. So having more lending protocols,
Yes.
which are like slightly different structures, like
Yep.
Morpho, or Morpho similar to Morpho, is where we want to go. And then once we build out our trusted execution environment into Flare, I think there's very, very interesting ways to use XRP with artificial intelligence and with baked in risk models. So I quite like the idea of being able to lend across multiple chains at the same time, so
Okay.
that you can effectively have a position on one chain, which is, and borrow against it on another. And I think that's for me, that's a protocol that would sit very nicely within a trusted execution environment. I also think trusted execution environments will allow us to create privacy for XRP DeFi, but privacy with regulatory compliance.
These are
Uh,
huge.
one one of the issues with privacy is that the regulators really, really, really don't like it,
Yeah.
especially in DeFi.
Mhm.
And but of course, if you can give people privacy, but with regulatory compliance and
Mm.
KYC and AML, then I think you've got something of value.
Well, it does start to change kind of the tune of how regulators are going to look at DeFi right now, because many people still think it's a Wild West show out there in terms of what's happening, and it is to a certain extent, for sure. Okay, so all of this is potentially happening 2026. When you look at the market structure bill here in the U.S., the potential for this to get through in early 2026 is real. If that occurs, how would this change your business? Would it change it all? Would it accelerate it? Give me some insights.
It will accelerate it dramatically, because it will give total stamp of approval to crypto and to a large extent DeFi. Um, this will make institutions more desire more to allocate to crypto
Yep.
and to allocate to DeFi. And of course, Flare and Firelight are the principal entities that
Yep.
I think in the marketplace that will be offering the cover that those institutions need, together with the XRP collateral base. And so for me, I think it's almost a sounds trite to say it, but if it goes through and if everything goes well, we're in a sort of perfect storm where I think. I think sometimes in life and in business, things come together, and they come together at a particular time, and it's coming together very well.
Yeah. Well, and the point is we're going to continue to see a lot more expansion, I think, with what you guys are doing. I just saw
Hmm.
your tweet. I'll share that with the audience, because these are the kind of innovations I think that continue to I don't know if the community fully understands the impact this is going to have, for sure. If you look at
I
people out there, what would you say to make them a little bit more rested, because they've been holding this asset for so long? You know, now I can do what? You know,
Now you can get yield, but as importantly, it's going to take billions of units of XRP off of the market.
yeah. You know what that means, guys. That means people are going to hold it longer, only driving supply shock into the system right here. So a lot happening. Spectre, of course, debuting on Flare as S Flare. So you'll be able to get that there. Follow Flare's account because this is something that I keep a close eye on, is what the Hugo and his team are doing over there. They keep a good job on really kind of keeping everybody updated on what's happening within the ecosystem. Hugo, anything else that you would say, all right, we have got these partnerships brewing with institutional. We've now placed a new utility layer on top of XRP. And we've got all these great partnerships, including the significant governance partnerships out there with companies that we just mentioned. Is there anything else you'd want the audience to know about that you think, hey, you guys should really pay attention to this?
Well, we're building on TE layer, which will allow us to do some really interesting things. So TEs allow us to build a protocol called protocol managed wallets, and this is a wallet on another chain that can be purely managed from a smart contract on Flare, meaning the smart contract itself manages the wallet. This is a big leap in decentralization. We are effectively building the next version of FAssets around this protocol for XRP first,
Wow.
but then adding other tokens like Bitcoin. And that for me is going to be one of the biggest things that we do next year. And very exciting because if we can have both XRP and Bitcoin on Flare and offer both of those tokens utility, it's a very exciting opportunity for us. But more importantly, protocol managed wallets then allow developers to effectively build protocols around the fact that you can have a wallet on multiple chains,
Right.
which that smart contract can control. So you can build a fully decentralized way to control assets around multiple chains from a single chain, that chain being Flare.
Man, that's fantastic. I mean, this kind of innovation, I continue to be surprised at where we are right now. And this is something I was talking with some people the other day about, in terms of everything you learned about crypto in the last 5 years, you almost have to forget, because there's
Mm-hmm.
so much innovation at this scale where we are right now that is going to make the last five. It's kind of like when the early stage of the internet, we had a lot of, kind of just moving boulders and rocks around, and then we finally
Yeah,
got use case. So I think that's where we
it
are now.
takes it takes a long time to lay the pipes, but once the pipes are laid, you can pump a lot of gas through them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, which is, I think, where you guys are now. So keep a close eye on Flare, what they're doing. Obviously, check out Firelight, learn a little bit more about this, guys. It's going to be interesting. Hugo, thanks so much for coming in today. I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you so much for your time, and have a good weekend.
All right. You guys know what to do. Make sure and like and subscribe. Also, if you have a guest that you want on this show, make sure and just drop some comments down below. We'll catch you next time right here on the XRP podcast. Take care.